There it goes. Wait, make sure it's good. All right, going live in 3, 2.
Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Hey, look, it's Blair.
Hello, good day, Internet. Or is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we're
As long as you're actually having a good day.
Well,
then,
yeah.
I'm having a great day.
That is our rallying cry.
Yeah, it's we don't really have a fair way of starting the Twitch stream that is good for guests yet. We should probably figure that out one of these days. But yeah, we just chat. If you're new to Good Day Internet, like Blair is, we just kind of chat about stuff to kind of get warmed up for the Daily Tech News Show.
Yeah.
Often it's about etymology or food. Depends. It could be all kinds
It
of
can
things.
be anything, almost.
Speaking of food, well, I mean, sort of. Speaking of drink, guess who's got coconut LaCroix in her fridge?
Your
My
mom.
mother.
Where'd she learn about that, I wonder?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe she was listening to a little Good Day Internet where I was saying there seems to be a bit of a shortage.
Or maybe she anticipated your arrival and stocked up to keep her daughter happy.
Well, it's both. She said she stocked up because she knew I liked it. She tried one and hated it. So now they're all mine.
And they're all yours.
Yeah, worked out really well. Story of my life. Well, so yeah, I'm up at Mother Elaine's house for the entire week this week, which is lovely. I don't know when the last time y'all were up in Sonoma County, but boy, is it nice.
Sonoma County?
Yeah.
I went to Sonoma State. I love Sonoma
did?
County.
Where are you from?
San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
She's another local. She, like
Yeah.
me, is a very rare person indeed.
I mean, I'm from Sebastopol, so Sonoma State was like where a lot of kids went just because it was like the cool school that was not too far away. So
Yeah, my mom actually lived in Sebastopol for
really?
quite a few years. Yeah. Back when there were a lot of dirt roads involved, I guess.
There still are, but usually they're surrounded by really expensive vineyards now.
Right.
So yeah, times have changed, but
Yeah.
it is still. It's funny. It smells a certain way up here, and I always forget about it until I'm here, and I'm like, oh, I love the way it smells.
Yeah, some days it smells like that, and then other days it's really hot.
Cow dung,
and then you get the Sonoma aroma.
or
Yeah.
the apple press. Boy, those smell bad. Which
You
is
think
funny.
apple
'cause you
press
think
would smell good? Yeah.
you would. It smells like rotten apples, is what it smells like.
Oh, it doesn't smell like not even fermented, just rotten apples.
Just rotten. It's bad. It's one of the worst smells ever.
Champaign, Illinois used to smell like Kraft cheese, which you think sounds good, but it doesn't because it's like being processed. So it smelled like chemical.
Oh, and also like out of context. Like you don't want to smell that if you're not eating it.
Yeah.
You know? Ooh.
It was the smell of the cheese being turned into powder, just wafted across the entire town.
I didn't realize Kraft cheese was powdered. I thought it was always like
Kraft macaroni and cheese, the powder.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think that's what we're talking. I think that's what they were making.
I guess I was thinking Velveeta, kind of.
Oh yeah,
Like American cheese. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all the places I lived and what it smelled like. Modesto smelled fine until planting season, which happened 3 times a year. So a lot of brown air, a lot of cow manure, fertilizer.
Now, Urbana, which is right next to Champaign, which is where the campus of the University of Illinois is, often smelled like a farm. that Sonoma aroma kind of smell. Because they had the South Farms, were the school's agricultural farms right south of the campus.
It's funny too, because it always depended on like how the wind's blowing and the time of year, and you just kind of got used to it. You'd be like, yeah, it smells like cows today. But it was always sort of, we'd get embarrassed because maybe for a basketball game, a team would be playing it, in our gym from somewhere else, and all the kids would be complaining about how it smelled like cows. And you kind of are reminded like, oh yeah, we're a cow town. Other people don't like this. We're just used to it.
I'm going down the cow town.
Well, you're a cow town when the new housing development's right next to a feedlot.
And they were.
There are a lot of them. If you stand state in Turlock, Stanislaus State,
Yeah.
The school was literally down the block from a
Is that what you
feedlot.
called Stanislaus State?
Stan State? Yeah.
Stan State? Yeah.
And it was weird because the campus police had authority on the highway, so if you blew through Turlock doing 90 whatever, they had the legal authority to pull you over, which seemed kind of unfair. So you just kind of go a little bit faster, so they can't.
You mean it was a speed trap?
Well, but they're campus police. They're not the city police. They're not CHP.
But the campus probably had its own jurisdiction, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, which is weird because it extends onto the interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way speed traps usually work, right?
I thought speed traps were just a way to raise money.
Well, yeah, but the way
Oh,
they
but
work is
They're
the town
operated
with
by
the
law enforcement.
Yeah, the town with the jurisdiction over that stretch of highway gets to collect the speeding tickets for the part that goes through their jurisdiction.
And then so it's weird because that was the only place to see actual concerts, like any like big name band. It's like the Cranberries played there, so we went up there. But it's just like the weirdest feeling because you're literally on speak of Cowtown, in the middle of nowhere on a college campus, and it's like you go see a concert, but it's like in the standard auditorium. It's not like super Coliseum-y or anything fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Follinger Auditorium at University of Illinois is the same way.
Oh, that was the other one, Counting Crows. But they used to do the JC circuit all around.
I saw Counting Crows at the Greek Theater in Berkeley.
That's a great.
They were kind of big. They were big enough by then to, they were playing the Greek. And I wasn't even really a big fan, but it was a really fun show. It was a nice night. It's great.
I've yet to go to that theater, the one in Berkeley.
Oh, it's real
So
nice.
good, yeah.
There's a Greek in LA as well, which is bigger, but same idea.
Are they related or are they just thematically
know.
the Greek?
It's all Greek to me.
Yeah. and as it should be. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. They're laid out very similarly. I mean, maybe it's just the Greek
I think
style.
ideas are from the same source. We're going to make a theater like the old Greek theaters of the ancient world, but whether they were created by the same organization, I don't know.
The Hellenic Society of America?
Yeah. People are allowed to sing in whatever language they want at those.
Well, according to the Counting Crows, it's a lot of metaphor and similes.
Yeah, I mean, when will the crows stop counting? That's what I want to know.
Never.
The incessant counting.
Mr.
We get
Jones
it.
and
We
them.
know math. Man. So Blair, what did you study at Sonoma State?
Zoology.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Cool. That
Yeah.
sounds really fun. In a future life, I would study zoology in school.
Yeah, Sonoma State is actually really well known for their biology programs. And one of the things that I loved about it is that the classes are really, really small. So in my upper division class, what are those called? The higher level classes.
Yeah.
It's been so long that I'm out of college that I'm like forgetting all the
Upper
terminology.
division.
Upper division,
Yeah.
They had less than 40 kids, all of them. And so the lab was taught by the teacher, by the actual professor, no TAs. And that also means that we went on crazy field trips. So one of my classes I took my senior year, we actually went all the way to Zizix, which is a preserve and research facility in the Mojave Desert, and spent 4 days catching lizards and snakes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I got to do that as an undergrad, which was insane.
Now, did you have to pay any of the fees or like accommodations out of your own pocket, like hotel and stuff? Or was that? Oh, wow. That's pretty
covered.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And my junior year, I took a class where every single week our lab we would get in a couple of 12-passenger vans and go tide pooling because of all the tide pools in Sonoma County. So that was our lab for my invert bio class. Insane.
We went tide pooling in elementary school, which was so fun. But, little kids, like, we don't, you're just sort of running around being like, yay.
Look at that creature. Step on it.
See an enemy.
Yeah. Ooh, a crab.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, like it's a great place on Earth to study that kind of stuff.
What if we could pivot the Tide Pod challenge into the Tide Pool challenge?
Ooh.
Well, what would they be doing? Swallowing tide pool creatures?
No.
Okay.
It'd just be like the challenge would be to like study the tide pool, and
Yeah.
They should try to eat a
I mean,
whole sea
because
anemone.
like When was the last time any of us were at a tide pool? Blair, maybe a little bit more recently.
Like an
than me,
actual
but
tide
it's
pool, not one that was in an aquarium
Man,
set
I
up.
have
to-
not-
no, like
Yeah.
like in nature. I mean, it is
Good question.
fascinating.
I haven't
I
been
can't
to
remember.
one
It's
since
some
high
of the
school.
coolest stuff that is alive on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of national parks and state parks have free tide pool tours, so you can meet
Ooh, that's
a
so cool.
ranger and they'll point out the stuff you're looking at, which
Yeah,
the average
which is
person might be
helpful.
like, oh, look, an anemone, oh, look, a crab, but you might not notice this right here is a sea sponge, there's a tube worm, there's stuff there that you might not realize without a
yeah.
guide.
Ranger,
That's the
show
challenge.
me your
Instead
wares.
of a Tide Pod, go find a Tide pool and take a tour of it,
That's right. Just don't swallow it.
and then do a YouTube video about the amazing things you saw there. Don't swallow anything
yeah,
from the Tide pool.
it's a
That's right.
challenge. How much can you learn?
How much can you learn and not swallow?
Swallow your pride, perhaps.
Swallow all that knowledge.
Yeah.
Just
Internalize
swallow
it.
all those smarts.
Sand dollars. That's all I remember from next to
Sand dollars. I know. I remember figuring out those were animals and being very surprised as a child.
I wanted to trade them in for
Because
real
they're-
dollars.
There's such a big part of like,
The
a
ocean.
certain, well, yes, but once they're dead and dried out, little beach houses and,
Mhm.
kind of like their
Mhm.
bathroom decor and stuff. It's like when you see one that's alive, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this came from somewhere.
Now
It's
it's
not
creepy
just like
on
a
my
rock.
as part of
Yeah.
my bathroom tile set.
It is
Yeah.
a little bit
It's
actually.
like a skeleton.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they stand on their edge like that to filter feed is so crazy.
I know.
That's a big trope in tide pool horror films made for
Mhm,
sand
mhm.
dollars is that they end
Yeah.
up in a shower somewhere.
Those poor sand
Their
dollars.
bathroom
They
is
didn't deserve
filled
it.
with the bones of my ancestors.
Ah!
How many would you like to buy? Their discount. Not a discount.
Dollar 108 for you, 99 cents.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a marine biologist. But then as I got older, I kept talking to people about it. It's like, yeah, no. It's a hard.
What turned you off? You didn't realize like
There just
you couldn't
wasn't
figure
like
out
from
what you
everyone
would
I
do?
talked to, it was a pretty grueling way to make a living, and not just studying it was the cool part, but it
You're right.
required a lot
Yeah.
of additional running around to get grants, to get
Mhm.
monies, to get your project approved or your research approved.
You had to learn all that marine biology.
Yeah, you had to learn all the taxonomy and the different
All that cool
citations.
statistics.
And
Yeah.
was
Well,
it
that's how I felt as a brief math major when I first started college, because I was like, I'm good at math. It's great. Like I've got a gift. And everyone was like, you going to be a math teacher?
Yeah. See, that's the problem.
I was
There's
like,
not a good connection.
I hadn't really thought about that, 'cause I
Yeah.
was kind of a kid still. So
The idea of a field of study and connecting it to different careers, like science is
Yeah.
the perfect example of that. If you don't want to spend your life in a lab, what science careers are there? And it turns out there's a huge amount. You can apply science to almost any position in any place that you work or anything that you do. You could bring science to that. But
Yeah.
if you don't want to be a researcher or a teacher, there's not a lot as a kid that's compelling you to study science,
Yeah,
So-
people don't say like you could become an actuary or investment banker, Sarah. Come
Yeah.
on.
Remember
Yeah.
Brad from Revision 3 and Tech TV? He was in charge of
do you-
sales.
do you-
Brad Murphy.
Brad
Yeah,
Murphy.
yeah.
Do you know what he did before he did that job of that?
I
particular-
don't.
He was a marine biologist.
He was?
And I talked to him at length
You
about
end
it.
up as a
like I
salesperson.
saw him
Yeah.
somewhat recently. I
He-
feel
well, that's why he sold
embarrassed
so
that I
well
didn't know
to
that.
dolphins and whales.
He transitioned into the ice capades and then sales.
Let's
Uh,
transition into Daily Tech News Show,
let's do it.
shall we?
We shall.
All right, here we go in 3, 2. Sam Leung has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Sam. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, July 8th, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline's grandma's house, I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Roger Chang, the show's producer.
Joining us today as part of the This Week in Science Daily Tech News Show exchange program, we're very excited to have Blair Bazdarich from This Week in Science and Blair's Animal Corner.
Hello, so excited to be here.
Thanks for. So we just had Roger was on This Week in Science with you guys not too long
Yeah.
ago. Thanks for returning the favor.
Anytime.
How was he?
Oh, he was fantastic.
Actually, I listened to that
Right,
episode. It was
yeah.
really good. Roger was awesome. If you haven't listened to that, go check it out at twis.org. Meanwhile, we are going to talk about growing your meat, but not in the way your parents or grandparents have in just a few minutes. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
MoviePass shut down services to customers as of July 4th at 5 a.m. Now, according to CEO Mitch Lowe, the shutdown will last several weeks to complete work on a new app. During the time, the service won't accept new signups or charge existing customers. So subscribers who have already paid for the month will be automatically credited for downtime once MoviePass resumes service.
It's just keeps getting better.
Yeah, it does.
Apple is testing biometric sign-in on the web with iCloud.com. Users running the betas of iOS 13, iPad OS 13, and Mac OS Catalina who go to beta.icloud.com can choose to sign in with Face ID or Touch ID. At WWDC this year, Apple announced that sign-in with Apple Tools would be available to developers this summer ahead of the feature's public launch in September. All right, let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest GDPR fines yet.
The UK's Information Commissioner's Office announced plans to fine British Airways 183 million British pounds for violating GDPR rules in a 2018 data breach that affected 380,000 people. The ICO's investigation found that poor security arrangements led to the breach of credit card information, names, addresses, travel booking details, and logins. It was a big breach. GDPR allows for fines up to 4% of a company's worldwide turnover, with British Airways fine amounting to 1.5 of 2017 revenue for the company. British Airways has 28 days to appeal the ruling, and it says no fraudulent activity has been found on accounts linked to the breach.
Yeah,
that has also been disputed by several people already.
Well, yeah, British Airways says no
Yes.
fraudulent activity has been found on the accounts. That's going to be a big part of their appeal, is to say, hey, this is out of proportion. There hasn't been harm done. People who are accusing British Airways of lying or being incorrect about that can bring forth that as part of the appeal. But really, what I think is fascinating about this story is that the GDPR fine is being assessed for British Airways having to have known better. In other words, it's not really about whether the data was used or whether there was harm. It was about the fact that British Airways didn't take the proper security precautions to protect it in the first place. So I doubt they win on appeal if that's going to be their main argument.
I've also seen a lot of conversation around the internet about, okay, well, if you do the math and figure out like, okay, this is the fine, based on how many people were supposedly affected, how much is data worth, right? How much is one user's data worth? Malik was somebody on the internet who was like, okay, well, when you're looking at the British Airways breach, it's about $457 US, right? So if you looked at maybe the Equifax breach, which impacted more people, well, Equifax, by the same math numbers, should have been fined quite a bit more than it was. So, and I don't exactly know if it's as cut and dry as that, but
well, it was a different situation because it happened in the U.S., not in the EU. So
totally,
you're comparing apples and oranges there. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, it's a company, a breach. How many people are affected? How much was the company fined? And do a little division. But it is an interesting thought of, okay, well, when these fines get handed down, and you think of it in terms of anybody who was affected or potentially affected, what is that number, and what's the adequate number?
Yeah. Well, and what the GDPR is trying to do is not fine you for the damage, but fine you as a punishment to scare that company and other companies into taking better preventative measures in the future so there won't be a breach. That's what I find fascinating about this. Waymo has begun testing complimentary Wi-Fi for customers of its Phoenix-based Waymo One self-driving service. So it's a limited test right now. There's always a human driver inside, but the cars are mostly autonomously driven. Waymo also makes sure all minivans in their fleet come with an installed child seat and are cooled to 72 degrees before they pick you up. This follows the addition of ad-free music streaming from Google Play Music for passengers. That came in April. Waymo One is being tried by 1,000 users in a 100 square mile service area around Phoenix, Arizona. So it's not a lot of folks, and not all of them get the free Wi-Fi. That's like a sub-test of certain people who've opted into early features. So yeah, this is an interesting one. Blair, I know you've started to change your tune on whether you want a car to drive you without a human.
Yeah, this still makes me a little itchy just because, that's really what you want to do is add the stakes of putting a toddler in a self-driving car. I don't know about that, but I definitely used to be very scared of the whole technology in general. But I have a close friend whose husband works at Tesla, and I've been able to see some of those test cars, and he's really been able to show me how autopilot works in a Tesla. And knowing that, at least in that case, you have to have somebody with their hand on the wheel. They're supposed to be paying attention, but that it's essentially just augmented adaptive cruise control with the ability to change lanes and stuff like that. I think that stuff is really valuable and could save a lot of lives. But yeah, this one, throwing the toddlers in right away in the testing of these self-driving cars is a little bit sketchy.
Although at the same time, it's funny, when I read the story, I was like, so many of my friends who have kids who don't use Uber or other ride-hailing apps, ride-hailing services, because nobody's going to have a car seat in the back and there might be a kid involved. And especially being where I am now, which is wine country, California, where it's like getting a driver to drive you around is very important, right? Because it's like people are drinking wine, you're wine tasting, the whole thing. So it's even more of an issue. You hear people talking about all the time, who's going to drive? How are we going to get there? Blah, blah, blah. And, if there's a kid in the child seat, it is actually it's a feature that is so important for parents that people who don't have kids kind of go like, all right, that's a nice perk. The complimentary Wi-Fi, depending on how good it is, also a nice perk. You kind of sit in the back and do your job.
I wonder, since you're not allowed to put minors in ride shares on their own, if you would be allowed to put a minor in a self-driving car.
No, that no. I would think
not
that,
on their own. Not on their own.
Yeah.
Maybe a teen. I don't know. They might be
maybe a teen.
That's an interesting question, though. It's something that hasn't come up. I don't know that anyone's tried, but
it'll come up more and more. 1,000 people in these things. They're subject to so many restrictions about what they can say in certain cases that, it's way too early to be for sure about whether that sort of thing is going to be a concern or not, but it will be someday. And I think what's going on with this story is Waymo is trying to make it attractive for people to want to use this service more by saying, hey, you know what you don't get in a Waymo, even though it's an automatic car, you don't get a stinky driver, you don't get a car full of cigarette ashes, you get a nice, cool car. It's not going to be super hot. Yeah. So I don't know. I think they're just trying to make it feel like a better option anyway, on top of the whole technology.
Researchers from Berkeley's International Computer Science Institute found that up to 1,325 Android apps that were gathering data from devices after people explicitly denied them permission. The apps don't violate the permissions, but find other ways to top access data, such as gleaning location information from photos, which are approved for access by the app, or using Wi-Fi to estimate location. In Google Q, location information in photos will be hidden, and apps wanting special access to Wi-Fi must also get approval for location information. 13 apps accessed unprotected files from other apps to look for info, like your phone's IMEI number.
Yeah, that's the way they can tell that, this is the same person who used that app went to this website, if they can collect the IMEI number in both places. It's an easy way to track you. And this is such a crazy story as far as them not violating policies, right? They're not breaking the policies about what data they're collecting. They're saying, you won't allow us to directly get your location information. Well, you didn't protect that file over there, and you let that app use it, and we can look at that file. We have the rights in the app. So it's loopholes, and thankfully Google sounds like they're going to try to close those loopholes in Google Q, but something to keep aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how much to really be upset about that sort of thing, right?
Well,
It's not
again, you
great,
said, you know,
but
it's a loophole, right? So it's there is no real fault here. You can't point your finger at an app and say, you know, you knew what you were doing and you were, you know, trying to get around stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, those were the measures in place. And for Google to say, all right, well, let's go back to the drawing board and make some new measures is kind of all you can do at this point.
does this bug you,
I
Blair?
feel like a lot of the time we're happy when apps will pop in and give us something with our information that we didn't know we wanted. Like, hey, you said you're on vacation during this time. Do you still want to set a meeting? But we get upset when they take things that we're not anticipating. So it's kind of tough to decide when we're okay with them taking our data without us realizing it and when we're not okay with it.
Yeah. It would be nice to know when they're taking it.
Yes,
That,
it would.
I think that's the upshot of all of this.
Yeah.
Mozilla denies claims from the UK Internet Service Provider Association, or ISPA, that it plans to enable DNS over HTTPS by default in the Firefox browser in the UK. The system, DNS over HTTPS, encrypts your domain name system requests. That's when you put in a domain name like dailytechnewsshow.com. That's a DNS request. They are not currently encrypted. They could be, and that would keep man-in-the-middle attacks from happening. Sometimes people can try to intercept your DNS request, hijack it, and redirect you to a malicious page. It's not super easy to do, but it can be done. However, DNS over HTTPS makes that attack not happen. It also speeds up browsing. It makes your browsing faster in this case to have an encrypted connection. But the ISPA and the UK government have expressed concern that DNS over HTTPS would also get around ISP blocks on sites banned by the government for copyright infringement or blocked by ISPs at the request of child protection groups or parents, because apparently being a man-in-the-middle attack is a easy way to implement a filter or a block. Now, Mozilla said in a statement, quote, "A more private DNS would not prevent the use of content filtering or parental controls in the UK. There are ways to do it that don't require you to intercept." Since the ISP is the one getting the DNS request in the first place, the ISP should have a way to be able to filter and block if they need to for whatever reason. Firefox has included support for DNS over HTTPS if you want to turn it on. It's been in Firefox since November 2018, but it is not enabled by default.
I guess my initial question of this is, it seems like it should be enabled by default because what you're talking about, Tom, are exceptions to the rule, and very important ones. But is there a reason that it would not be? Because I feel like the majority of people would hear this story and say, yeah, that makes sense, but they're not going to go looking for that in their browser settings.
Well, the reason you don't turn it on by default is that there are side effects to it, and
sure,
it's always better to have people opt in than opt out, because if suddenly people opt in and they can't get to certain things, or there's websites that act unpredictably because of this. You want to be the kind of users like, oh, it's because I have that DNS over HTTPS. Maybe that's why, versus just implementing it. You want to get to a point where implementing it will have very few side effects. And one of those side effects is, having ISP blocks. And Mozilla is working with governments on this to say like, hey, we'd like to roll this out. We'd like to make everything more secure. But they want to do it responsibly. That's why they haven't actually turned it on by default yet. Does anybody want it on by default? No?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're right. You're right. It should be opt-in rather than opt-out. That's the way to, upset the fewest amount of people.
Until you're sure that this is definitely a good idea with no side effects. I think that's the way I look at it anyway.
Well, how about we go back to transportation? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Everybody. The Asahi Shinbun has an article talking about how Japanese car sharing service Oryx Auto found an unusually high number of people who rented a car and logged 0 miles of actually driving that car. Other car sharing services have noticed the same oddity. What's going on here? NTT Docomo found that in 2018, 1 in 8 of its car sharing services customers used it for purposes other than transportation. So car sharing service Times 24 Co. conducted a survey asking its users, how are you using your car rentals and for what? Taking naps and making private calls led the way in non-driving uses, along with eating lunch, using it as a temporary workspace, storing bags when coin lockers were full, and recharging cell phones after the 2011 earthquake. That makes sense. Other less frequent uses were watching TV, getting dressed for a Halloween party. That's what they said. Practicing your rapping or singing, or, that's kind of just singing. Practicing English and facial stretches to reduce face size were among some of the other less common uses. Cars cost around 400 yen, which is close to about US $4 for 30 minutes. That's plus mileage. So, not real expensive unless you don't drive it for any miles.
Yeah, it's plus mileage, but it's only going to be $4 for that 30 minutes if you don't take it anywhere. So that's where these companies are getting upset.
Your little cubby. Yeah.
Because the way they plan the charge is, well, it'll be a base $4. And then the farther they drive it, the more miles they're putting on it, the more we charge them. And that's where we make our money. And if people are just getting in and running the engine for air conditioning without taking it anywhere, it's actually costing the company more than they are charging you for it in some cases.
Sure. Yeah.
I actually have a funny story about this, and that is that I've done this. When I was backpacking through Europe in around 2007, I think, I got stuck in an airport in Europe for about 18 hours overnight, and I ended up renting a car to sleep in it. And it was a similar situation. I think I paid the equivalent of about $25 for the night for the car because I didn't drive it at all. And it was extremely uncomfortable, but it was better than trying to sleep in the middle of the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you have to try to find two seats that don't have a bar,
well, and you've got a little bit more privacy and maybe some climate control.
Yep.
And yeah. I've never done that, but I can see, coming up against a situation, you might be like, this is better than any alternative I can think of.
But Blair, you had unlimited miles, right? On the car.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't remember much about it, but
the only difference between this and your situation is this is an app where you, at the drop of a hat, can be like, oh, give me this car for the next 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the mileage part is kind of built into the cost recovery process, but also the convenience of like, oh, I'm a block away from the car sharing parking lot. Boom, boom, boom. I can go change into my Halloween dress now. Like that's what's going on here. And it's I don't know how, it's not a majority of the use of these things, but it does seem to be a significant number of them.
There's definitely a cultural thing going on here too. I know this is the story is based upon Japanese users. The idea of needing to like go eat lunch in your car, to me, I'm like, what? It's better in the open air. But in Japan, in many cases, it's not done to just kind of eat lunch on the go.
You definitely don't eat while walking in Japan.
Yeah, like you're kind of somewhere where you're supposed to be eating. And so if you're kind of caught in the middle of that, you may actually be like, I gotta eat lunch, and I need sort of a private space to keep things kosher.
But lunch was only one of these. I mean, I think the bigger part of this is needing private space in a large city. It doesn't even just have to be in Japan. In any large city, this could be the kind of thing that happens, because Japan, in a weird way, is more set up for this not to happen because they have capsule hotels and short-time rentals that aren't seedy and that. So there are other options, but this one's a lot cheaper and more convenient. So
it's
an
the public will find a way.
Unexpected use of technology, I think.
Yeah.
Well, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. That'll keep you up to date on the quick. In the meantime, Blair has brought us a story about meat. Meat grown from animal cells rather than harvested from a conscious animal is a real thing that is improving in scale. It's getting close to being available as a consumer product, just like the plant-based burgers, like Beyond Burger, have now taken over in the consumer space. This meat grown from animal cells is kind of the next wave. It promises to let us enjoy meat without the ethical, environmental, and health concerns associated with livestock production. But a study published in the journals Frontiers in Nutrition tested some public perception of different labels for this kind of food to find out just how accepting we would be. Blair, what did they find?
Well, we know that meat is a huge impact on environmental issues in general and extinction possibilities, climate change, all that good stuff, bad stuff. But what they found was something pretty similar to when genetically modified foods were first hitting the market, which is, depending on how you talk about it, it could sound like a really good thing or a really bad thing, and it can make people want to eat it or stay way away from it. So the GM foods, when they first showed up, people started calling them Frankenfoods. Maybe they thought it was pretty funny or colorful or fun reporting, but ultimately it made people terrified of the food. And something similar is happening here. So this research from University of Portland looked at about 480 US adults. It was a pretty broad representative covering age, gender, geographic distribution, and diet. Only 88% of them were meat eaters, so they were also talking to vegetarians. And they wanted to see how they responded to cultured meat framed in the following ways. A, as an innovation which benefits society. B, as a high-tech development. Or C, as basically just like normal meat. And what they found was that when you brought technology into the conversation, people had more negative attitudes towards the concept and were less likely to consume it. They were about 14% less likely to try it compared to when talking about social benefits or when they called it the same as meat. And even before they started these framed conversations, people across all 480 participants, the most common words that they used to respond to a conversation about this lab cultured meat were artificial and science. And this might be because in general, in the news media, we see when people start talking about these lab, quote unquote, created meat, they show usually a piece of meat in a petri dish. And so that is kind of the narrative that we usually get. But when cultured meat is ready, it won't come out of a laboratory. It'll come out of a food processing plant, just like some of the food you may not want to think about that way, like your chicken nuggets. So it actually won't be that different from the food that you're eating now. But this is just proof that the way that we talk about technology and the way we talk about solutions to environmental problems can have a huge impact on people's likelihood to adopt that new technology.
So instead of pens of living animals that are then slaughtered and processed into your meat, you will have pens of growing cells that will then be harvested, I guess is the word, and turned into the meat that you buy.
Yeah, and there's a huge amount of benefits to that. It uses less water, it uses less energy. If you think about trophic levels in nature, 1 acre used to make meat and 1 acre used to make corn, the corn's going to feed 10 times as many people. So in terms of worldwide hunger issues, that's going to help. There's less carbon dioxide output, all that good stuff, but also there's less chance for contamination. You're less likely to get sick from meat made this way. So there's a huge amount of benefits there. But ultimately, it sounds like people are just afraid of science getting their fingers in their food, which, is part of this whole narrative.
I feel like the the selling point of your E. coli.
Oh, we lost you there, Sarah. You froze up on us, but when you come back,
lab. Yeah,
you froze up on us at E. coli.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that the selling point of being physically safer, the opportunity for E. coli to spread, based on bad meat, because the meat is being produced in a lab, is a selling point for a lot of people who otherwise are turned off by this idea.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that that was brought in at this point, but framing is so odd, and social science in general is so interesting because things that we kind of on the insider track of an issue think will be compelling aren't always compelling to the average person. So like when we talk about framing the issue of climate change, talking about a climate crisis seems very compelling to people who are interested in the environment and animals, and this is their everyday. But if you talk to an average person, that actually turns them off. But if you talk about responsibly managing resources for future generations, that turns them on and is more likely to create behavior change. So this is one of those situations where I think to us who are down with the development of science and technology for the betterment of society, both feet fully in, those sorts of things get us really excited. But to the average person, it sounds like it's likely to polarize them and make them think about petri dish meat, and they don't want, it just gives them the icks, I think, ultimately.
There's a lot of factors that play. One is clickbait, right? Reporting agencies want something, flashy headlines. So saying lab grown meat in a petri dish, that gets people to click. And anything that fosters fear, gets people to click. And then you also have just a backlash against technology. So if it's pitched as technology, people are like, yeah, technology has done a lot of bad things lately. This must be another one of those. So having the ability to report on it in a way that makes people accept it on its merits is important, but also being able to report on it in a way that if there is a downside that's found, you can report on it responsibly without it being exaggerated and blown out of proportion as well. Because I could see somebody looking at this and saying, hey, this is just telling us to spin this as positive. What are they trying to hide, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, the answer is nothing. There isn't anything to hide yet. This seems like a pretty good way to do it. And we didn't even get into the ethical situation of like, hey, if you don't eat meat now, would you eat this?
Yeah, and I'm one of those people, and I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. But I do think it's ironic that a lot of people out there maybe have no idea how their current meat is made. And if you showed them that, they'd probably be grossed out and turned off. But if you start talking about this, they'll definitely be grossed out and turned off. There's kind of a disconnect there that if they knew how their chicken McNugget was made, they might actually prefer some lab meat.
If you got a labraculture story or any other tech story, you can submit it to our subreddit and be part of the conversation. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We're also on Facebook. We got a group, facebook.com/groups/Daily Tech News Show. And now our buddy Nick Lankson has some notes on the latest in 5G service in the UK.
Thanks, guys. This week we got some unexpected news. One of the biggest mobile carriers in the UK switched on its nationwide 5G mobile network, and from this week will sell an unlimited data package. No speed limits, no usage limits, and you can even tether your other devices to it. It blew the other operator we have here that already offered 5G out of the water in terms of pure value for money. So if you want to hear how 5G competition is heating up on this side of the pond, do check out episode 175 of Text Message by going to uktechshow.com. Oh, and belated happy 4th of July to all of you on the other side of the pond.
Well, thank you, Nate.
Nice. Should we check out the mailbag real quick?
Let's do it. Princess Willie wrote in about our conversation last week on Uber Eats letting you be able to order food ahead of time and then go somewhere and eat it. Willie says, I used to do exactly what Uber Eats is offering when I worked next to a few restaurants and got 30-minute lunch break. I would commonly call the restaurant, place my order for a certain time, then sit down and have a nice lunch before heading back to work. Uber makes so much more sense because then I wouldn't even have to call. Sometimes cutting out 5 minutes of my time means a lot. Honestly, since I started doing that for work, I have to call the other restaurants a few times and placed orders before showing up. So it's just so much more convenient.
Excellent. Thank you, Princess Willie, and everybody who keeps us informed with their perspectives at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Absolutely. And thanks also to Blair Bazderich. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was such a pleasure. Let folks know where they can keep up with your work.
Absolutely. I had so much fun today. Thanks for having me. You can check out TWIS This Week in Science at twis.org. We record live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time. You can go to twis.org/live to watch us there. You can also check out our YouTube or find us on iTunes, This Week in Science. You can also follow me on Twitter. I am at Blair's Menagerie. You'll find pictures of animals, musings about animal science, and occasionally just what I'm up to.
Excellent. Go check it out, folks. And don't forget, our best way of being supported is by Patreon, patreon.com/DTNS. You can get an ad-free RSS feed. You can get special episodes from me. Somebody called my editor's desk last Friday the best one I've done yet. Do you agree? I don't know. You have to be a patron to find out. Also, this coming editor's desk is going to be all Canadian. Actually, a few other Americans in there, but it was recorded entirely in Hamilton, Ontario. So you might want to check that out at patreon.com/DTNS.
If you have feedback for us, we'd love to hear it. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. Put it on your calendar and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Patrick Beja. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Yay!
Woo!
That was a great show, Blair.
Good
Oh,
show.
that
Good
was
show.
super fun.
That was great. Nobody on this show had a case of the Mondays, that's for sure. I don't know.
There were
Or if
no
you- or if you-
Garfields
or if
on
you
this.
did, you hit it well.
We have a TWIS science person in the chat room saying yay as well.
Oh,
Nice.
that?
Yay.
nice.
I think we should choose a title for the episode. And if you have submitted a title during the show with the bang S command, the exclamation point S command in Discord, Twitch, or IRC, it shows up at dtns.showbot.tv or gooddayinternet.showbot.tv. And among the suggestions are growing your meat and Movie Pass is pining for the fjords. Meet your new meat.
Don't give people the icks.
Mhm.
Waymo Wi-Fi.
Roger is a fantastic guest.
But I'm
We'll
not
see.
a guest on this show. I'm
No, but we talked about you being a fantastic guest.
True.
Pens of growing cells.
growing cells.
Don't touch my lab meat. Is that cultured marbling in your steak?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of good meat ones in here.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the right call.
Meet your new meat.
Yeah, that one's
Can
good.
you smell what the lab is culturing?
Although we've kind of we've
All right.
met the new meat already. We're kind of talking about like the next phase, right?
Well, yeah, but I think
Not so much that we're,
we're sort of introducing people to the idea of
I
it. don't you
suppose,
think?
yeah, in many cases, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I'm like, can't get away from the Impossible Burger, but many folks are like, never had it, don't know where I'd get it.
yeah, and that's the one that is in the public consciousness, but the lab grown stuff, I don't think people are as aware of.
No. I mean, I remember we talked about it on Tech News Today.
Yeah, 'cause I've always thought
You know,
that.
just kind of like a whoa, this is going to be a big deal, you know, if you can get the taste right. And we're still kind of talking about like, how do you get people to not be weirded out by this?
Well, the
Gord
thing is,
McLeod says, so you would call this the possible burger?
Yeah.
Yeah, Possible Burger.
it's more like possibly burger. I think you know what's
Burger.
interesting is I think part of the thing that might creep people out is that it tastes too much like the thing it's supposed to be substituting.
Mm.
Like I don't know if that's
Yeah. But just to get us back to the
Oh.
title real fast before you, because that's a good point, but I feel like it'll drag us into an interesting conversation, which I want to happen, but not at the expense of your title.
What about Meet
Me
Your New
neither.
Meat?
Meet your new meat? All right.
done.
I'm into it.
It sounds
Carry
like a
on,
duplex to
Roger.
me. Meet your new meat.
No, I think Roger, I think the point, it's sort of like how people are like, robots shouldn't be too human, because then we're
Yeah.
confused. We want to know the difference.
But I think there's a certain point where the people stop caring. There's certain things on the market that you could have the regular, you could have the name brand, you could have the knockoff, you could have the artificial, and at a certain point there's this threshold where people just go, if it tastes fine, I'll take it.
Yeah, once they accept it,
Mhm.
right? Then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I mean, there's so many food products that are so processed
Mhm.
and so lacking in nutrition, even though they taste like the thing they replaced, that people accept fine, right? They eat crap. We all eat crap all the time. It's all out there. So it's a matter of getting this accepted, right? That's the hump that this survey was trying to identify, which is how do you get people to get over misconceptions about it? And then if they're like, I can tell it doesn't taste as good, it doesn't have the same flavor, whatever, that's fine, that's fair. But fearing it for no good reason, that's, I think.
Well, and I think that there are a lot of reasons that, you know, again, to my point earlier about, you know, there are people who would be like, reducing my carbon footprint, I don't care. I just want a burger that tastes good.
Right.
But if you say, guess, you know, you're going to reduce your chances of getting sick or getting your family sick by such and such percent, and, you know, it's been recorded over time. There are lots of, you know, triggers where people go, oh, all right, well, and if it doesn't taste bad, then we should do that because then we're
Well,
going to be safer.
The big one is whether it's cheaper.
Yeah,
That too.
it ultimately has to be at least the same price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it won't be originally, but it's.
Yeah.
I think also there's this branding challenge because it's not fake meat,
Right.
but it's not real meat either. So
And the meat
if
producers are already trying to fight to stop plant-based burgers from being called meat or even burger,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
will they do the same thing here?
So that's part of it is you can't, because people who eat fake meat are willing to pay way more than the cost of normal meat because they've made this initial investment, this emotional investment in not eating meat. So I'll pay $15 for an Impossible Burger when the meat burger is $12 because that's a decision I've made years ago, right? But when you can't market it to those people, when you're marketing it to people who are buying the $4 burger, how? This is like, we need good ad execs to figure out exactly how to market this.
You'll
as
live
something
longer
that
at
people want.
at $8 versus half the time at $4.
Well, but will you? If you're eating lab-grown beef, that's not any healthier for you than regular beef. I mean, I guess you could tweak it so it has less cholesterol and fat, but then it's not going to taste the same. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Just skip the meat and go on a diet full of corn dogs.
I think that's still meat is the thing.
There's got to be some meat in a corn
Is
dog,
it?
right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably like a half soy.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned corn dogs because I'd like to pull the crowd. Corn dogs versus bagel dogs. For me,
Corn dogs.
it's an easy one. Oh, it's a bagel dog.
No, corn dogs. Why would
Corn
you eat a
dogs
bagel dog?
are the
It's not a bagel.
unliked stepchild.
corn dogs
of
are
bagel
more
dogs.
traditional. Bagel dogs taste better. I'm sorry. I'm with
They
Sarah.
do.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And you know what? And you know how to make them really good? You mix up your ketchup and your mustard together into one dip, and you dip your bagel dog into the ketchup mustard sort of
Would you
orange
put ketchup
glaze.
and mustard on a bagel without the dog in it?
That doesn't apply. It's
I
a
mean,
bagel dog.
you would if you had a bagel with savory stuff on it, right? Like if you made a sandwich out of a bagel for
Maybe.
particular
Yeah.
things. You
I
could.
would never put mustard or ketchup on a bagel, but a bagel dog,
That's
yes.
so funny. I've never had a bagel dog because
Oh,
there are veggie corn dogs, but they're not veggie bagel dogs that I have found yet.
really?
Corn
That is
dogs.
interesting. Yeah, corn dog is. Listen, I'm not a corn dog hater. I'm just saying bagel dog vastly superior.
I could tell you have done This Week in Science for many years because you said there are no veggie bagel dogs that I have found yet.
Yeah.
That I have found yet was the part like, I hear someone's doing a search right now. I'm going to add this qualifier.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'll get several tweets or emails if I make any definitive statements ever.
Prove it. You can't.
Prove it.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, only opinions can I make definitive statements about.
You know, sometimes maybe not. I had one person write me an angry email saying that their opinion was fact. I said, yes, your opinion is a fact that it was your
fact that
opinion.
You hold that opinion.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, you.
But see, I'm happy to have that argument.
Sure.
I don't like, somebody to Google shame me, but yeah, I'll talk all day about
Shame me. I don't care.
opinion.
I stopped caring a long time ago.
Wow. Okay. There are lots of recipes for making your own veggie bagel dogs.
That makes sense. I have not yet made bagels. This is something on my list.
Yeah, me either.
I bake a lot and I'm trying to expand my repertoire of baking, but bagels seem so involved. I haven't gotten to it
Bagels
yet.
are also, it's kind of like pizza. Depending on where you're from, it's very important the way that the bagel is made. And like New Yorkers will be like, "It's our water. The bagels are just better. You can't replicate it."
Yeah.
Whether or not you can, I don't know, but it's something that
does
gets
the
people
same
fired
thing.
up.
Yeah.
But also a bagel dog is not. It's not like a gourmet bagel.
Well, because you couldn't. I wonder how they make bagel dogs because you're supposed to boil bagels.
'Cause it's not
so
really
are
a-
you boiling the dog too?
It's
I
not
guess-
really
I
a
think-
bagel,
I
You
though.
can boil hot dogs. That's how we used to make them growing up.
Yeah. So you put the raw hot dog in the bagel dough and then
No,
you
I
boil
bet
the
you
whole
make
thing.
the
I think
This I
the
can
dog is already made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah,
you have to
you
put it
make-
in the water
you-
again.
No, you make the bagel. You have the cooked dog. You put it in the bagel. You put it in the oven and heat it up. That's gonna be that's gonna be my guess. Although this vegan
Yeah, and the
bagel
bagel is
dog,
created with the intention of, and it's already in the dog.
this vegan bagel dog
This
recipe I'm
vegan
looking at
bagel
has
dog.
you making the bagel from scratch and then cooking it.
In the water.
Yeah.
Blair,
Yes.
you got to do this and get back to
no.
us.
Okay.
You bake the bagel dogs at 450 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes
All right. Well,
until the outer layer of dough is nice and golden brown.
Oh gosh, I love a good
cannot
bagel dog.
guarantee when I will do this by, but I will definitely try it. I made my first pigs in a blanket just probably 6
those are
months
good.
ago because that's something I've never had because I don't eat.
You're not allowed to call them pigs in a blanket, are you?
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Fake pigs in a blanket.
Could you call it
Not
pig?
pigs in a
Can you
blanket.
call it pork?
Fig.
Pig-like,
Pigs in a blanket? No, that's something else.
spelled P-I-G-G.
I mean, pigs in a blanket and bagel dogs are pretty
They're
much the same family.
cousins,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, they're almost
Yeah.
the same.
You're on the same track. You like pigs in a blanket, you're gonna love a bagel dog, unless you're out here.
It's true. There are very few people like me, and that's why I'm special.
So lab grown or cultured or clean meat. That's what they were thinking would be a good word.
Yes,
Clean
clean meat. Yeah, they
So
say that in
clean-
Australia, and that's I meant to say that in the show. They that's gained traction in Australia already.
Clean meat bagel dogs. Would you eat a clean meat bagel dog?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sinless.
Why
sinless
not?
meat.
If it tastes just as good.
Yeah, but if I don't see, this is my big dilemma: is that if I don't eat red meat, but my reason for not eating red meat is environmental, but I have never eaten red meat in my whole life, would I then eat clean meat?
Clean beef.
Because you're not trying to replace anything, is what you're saying.
I'm not trying to place anything, but also it might wreak havoc on my digestive system. Like if I wanted to incorporate that into my diet, I'd probably have a few really bad days before my microbiome was ready for that. Like
It's
I can
hard.
tell if I'm snuck meat almost immediately.
It's impossible to say, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have a test of your biota, because everybody's microbiome is different. Maybe you have a microbiome that is just sitting there waiting for beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible.
No idea.
know,
Possible
I-
considering, most of my friends and family
Yeah.
eat meat, that it's all in there anyway. Because, you
So-
share your microbiome with your friends and family.
There's
already.
going to be a cottage. I feel like this is a prediction worthy of Justin Jackson. There's going to be a cottage industry of people offering implants to change your microbiome to adjust the lab grown meat.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know.
I know a lot of folks who have been meat free for either their whole lives or extended periods, and say like oh, and then when you go back, it's a real issue. Or I ate meat by mistake, and it was a real issue.
True. It is true that for most people, but I
it
will
can be.
No,
But
I-
I mean,
hear me out. I am the exception to the rule. I didn't eat meat for 3 or 4 years, and then one day had a steak,
Oh my God, you really went
And-
for it.
and I thought I was going to be sick. I almost did it as a stunt, and I was fine. I felt better actually because
I didn't eat meat for like 20 years, and the same thing. I was like,
See, you and I are.
I had it before. I knew what it tasted like, and so I had that sandwich, and I was like, yeah, it was good. It wasn't. It was very like, I don't know. The drama I expected there was nothing. I just ate it.
Both of us had microbiomes that had been introduced to meat when we were younger,
Maybe, yeah.
and stuck around. It was just like, oh, we could still handle meat. Whereas some people, their microbiomes, even though they've been introduced to meat, when they go vegetarian, it dies off for whatever reason, and then that's why they have the problem.
So there's a couple of reasons for that, I think.
Yeah.
One of them is that depending on why you go vegetarian, a lot of the times if people go vegetarian, they will still eat soup with beef stock in it. They will still eat things that have been in contaminated space because they're not, totally avoiding it to the same level as other people.
Prepared on the same surface as something or other. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a certain trace level of that stuff you're still getting regularly. I think that helps maintain that. But if somebody has completely been cut off from that, is making sure their stock and their Every little thing that they eat is meat free. They're checking their ingredients list before they buy things at Costco, for example. Then, you know, your microbiome would be still kind of virgin to a lot of
Be
that
starved
stuff.
of it. Yeah. Well, and that's why if you've never eaten meat like you haven't, there's no telling, right? Because you wouldn't. Your microbiome could have something that can handle meat, just like you say, from family or whatever. But then again, it might not. Might have all died off.
Yeah. I know.
We are mostly not ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. We're just a city bus for microbes, as I like to say.
What's the
city bus is a city bus filled with microbes.
Exactly.
Yeah, but your microbes outnumber the microbes on the city bus, don't they?
Well, no. If you count the people riding the bus, then there would
be. All the other people count. You're right.
Unless you don't think people count as bio. I don't know. All I know is as a kid, I had a lot of food allergies, and I didn't really eat red meat until I was 3 or 4. So when I go off food, like even for like half a year, I didn't eat red meat. Going back on it was kind of an experience. Like it wasn't bad, but I didn't have any gastrointestinal issues. I just felt really weird. Like I felt very lethargic, very like ugh. Which kind of keeps me up.
You that feeling lethargic when you eat bad, like fast food and stuff too. I wonder if there's some connection there.
So yeah, and I'm wondering if it's the amount, because for a while there I could eat like a steak, but if it was ground beef, it could very well be just whatever got ground into the beef. Like you don't know. So I don't know. I'm one of those edge cases because I have a very touchy. Like, you know, I'm the guy that carries like a big can of Pepto pills whenever I
you
travel.
have TPS. I have TPS. It stands for tissue paper stomach.
Oh. Hold on. I want to write this down.
Yeah, so I have my coworkers and a couple of my best friends, they'll look at me some days and be like, oh, TPS acting up, huh? Like, yeah.
Wait, not toilet paper. What was it?
Tissue paper.
Tissue
paper stomach.
Tissue paper.
You're
like,
writing
I for the longest time ate exactly 5 different things because I did not want to set off anything. Like it's like I better not do it. I'm on TV. If I eat anything, that's weird.
I can eat anything, and it has the same effect. Like that, the things that affect my stomach are not what I ate almost ever. Food poisoning is an exception, of course, but most of the time I could eat anything, and it doesn't really have an effect.
Like McDonald's soft serve? Nope.
Yeah,
that goes out very quickly. In fact,
Clamato.
My wife says it's just it's my way. It's like a built-in Weight Watchers program, like just things that people would pig out on and have no adverse reaction. I have a very adverse reaction. I can't eat some of those frozen pizzas and some of those like Hot Pockets are kind of that way to begin with, but like I can't eat that. That nope, not good at all.
Yeah, I consider myself lucky that my stomach is, you know, they try to take it down and it's fine. You know, for example, 4th of July, I was with a bunch of friends, you know, there's burgers and, you know, just lots of chips and dip and all sorts of stuff, you know, where at the end of the day, you know, you're kind of like holding your stomach. Oh, I ate too much, you know, and a friend of mine was like, who has Tums? And someone was like, I have Tums. Of course. I bring Tums everywhere, you know, and I'm like, I've never even had Tums.
Tums,
I
Pepto,
understand that they're helpful,
Mom.
but I just like, I don't have those. I've never been like, I should eat a Tums.
There was a time where I used to be afraid of road trips longer than 2 hours. Because I was afraid I would eat something and then I would be stuck on I-5 or something.
You'd need
excuse me, I got to drive off into this ditch for a few minutes.
So rough. The stomach aches and headaches, 2 things that I am prone to, are things that can just destroy your body, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you have a really bad stomach ache, you can't do anything, but it's, you know, even worse, the migraine that then leads to the stomach ache. I get those are especially fun. Oh, no. You just have to lay in a dark room. There's pretty much nothing you can do but shut down.
Yeah,
but you're not, and the worst part is you're not actually shut down, right? Because you have to lay there and feel it. You can't just sleep through it.
No,
right?
Oh, that's so awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, the human body, it's a wonderland, you know?
Yeah. Which is why I stick to chicken. Chicken is
really
one of the few meat sources I can eat without any problem. Like, and generally, chicken's really hard to screw up to cook, right? Like, Yeah, you can make it super tough, but it's generally edible.
Well, hey, so that reminded me of something. We were talking about the fact that if you create meat without raising an animal, it doesn't like get healthier magically.
Right.
It's still the same properties because it's grown from actual cells, right? So red meat would have the same red meat properties. Fish is an interesting one because what it's fed can change its omega-3 content.
Yeah.
My doctor has been very careful to say you need to eat wild caught fish if you want to raise your good omega-3s, because most farmed fish is fed corn, which actually lowers its omega-3s. But if you're eating wild caught fish all the time, you have to be careful of mercury.
Right.
Because one of the cool things about farm raised fish is they're not as exposed to the mercury. And so I'm like, could we just create fish out of cells that don't have mercury and have all the omega-3s we need? That would be amazing.
And certain farmed fish, like tilapia, can cause inflammation in joints. Because that happened to my wife. She's like, my hip really hurts. It's like, all you've done is eat fish. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Tilapia.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Why
I
is
think
that?
I'm not sure if it's the fish or what they feed the fish.
It's probably was something they feed it, would
But
be my guess.
what they found is certain farmed seafood can in certain people inflame. Like in my wife's case, it was her hip. It was just causing.
To my point, what if they could create tilapia fish that didn't do that, right? Because it wasn't fed the thing. You don't have to feed the cultured meat, do you?
Okay, so it says tilapia has high levels of arachidonic acid, which is an omega-6 fatty acid.
Okay.
And it helps repair damaged body tissues, but has also been linked to brain disorders like Alzheimer's and exacerbates inflammation.
Okay.
Yeah, you always hear not too much
So
omega-6. Don't
that's
take too much
not-
of that.
That's not from being fed. That's just the way tilapia is.
Yeah.
Cursed fish.
Yeah,
Because
it's a weird
then
one. Well,
it's like, well, you could change it with genetic modification, but then you're back in the whole GMO debate, right?
Which honestly, all our food is GMO. So
Well, yeah.
everybody
I mean,
chill out.
Anybody who's done a Punnett square has engaged in genetically
Anyone who
modifying.
eats corn will understand
Yeah.
that what they're eating is not what came out of the ground initially.
None of the stuff we eat now looks like it
No.
used. Potatoes don't look
It
the
just-
same.
It was genetically modified at a much slower pace.
People still freak out when I tell them carrots originally weren't orange.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I traveled in Israel, they had us dig up at a farm some carrots, and they were white, and they tasted otherwise exactly the same.
Yeah.
And there they are.
Yeah. And tomatoes were tiny little berries at one point.
And weren't they greenish, not actually red?
I don't know. Is that true?
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Also, all the great European cuisine requires North American ingredients.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Tomatoes, potatoes, corn.
Yeah, but with the fish, I was thinking, fake crab like you eat in a California roll is
Surimi.
reconstituted
pollock.
other fish.
Yeah.
Typically
like
pollock.
cod, stuff like that. So it's not that different from how you might make a lab created crab meat. It would be
You
pretty
can
similar.
grow actual crab meat
Yeah.
or your fake crab meat.
Side note: the California roll was invented in Vancouver.
This surimi has actual crab.
In Canada, the California roll is a Canadian product.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, like basketball.
And no, basketball was invented by a Canadian, but he was working in the U.S.
Depends on who you ask.
And let's bring it. Bring on this.
I was just in Canada, so they were claiming everything up there.
Of course. When you have nothing, you claim everything. I'm gonna get stabbed.
Whoa! Why you gotta be like that to the Canadians? They're sorry you're like that. My goodness sake.
Sorry.
I just found out that Degrassi Junior High is on Amazon. Or no, Netflix. No, Amazon.
Whenever we say Canada, that's where your mind goes.
It's because it's the first
old one or the newer one?
the old
with
one,
Drake?
back when
Oh,
they're
okay.
all little kids. Little kids with a fedora. But that was the best one. And then they went into high school and got weird.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Wake up. See, I remember the song. I used to watch it.
Wait, you're singing the Saved by the Bell song.
No.
Wake up and then yeah, you are.
No.
When I wake up in the morning, on time.
Hold on, not too close. We might get flagged.
I know.
We'll have to pay a
It
mechanical
almost seemed like
royalty
I
for
was
the
the theme song
performance.
itself.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it. Let's see.
Good luck.
Come on. I know Grammarly, great. I can't spell. I'll use it.
That's Degrassi?
Yeah.
Okay. You can stop. That's enough.
Okay.
That was enough fair use for us to get the idea.
All right. Well, but it was the wake up thing. It wasn't the melody that I thought he was getting confused.
Well, maybe Saved by the Bell might have cribbed it. I mean, the show Degrassi Junior High came out in the.
I actually, I've never seen it. I know that Drake. I know that Drake was in it.
He was in a later version.
That was the
of it.
later one.
Okay, well, that's the only thing I know about it. I've never seen it.
They dealt with teen pregnancies. They dealt with, was it gang or no? They dealt with abuse. They dealt with, I think one kid was like homeless or something, wasn't it? Or maybe I'm mixing it up with a different.
I remember the one with Drake in it. There was an episode where a girl started chatting on AIM with somebody and went to go meet him at a hotel, and it ended up being a 40-year-old man, and he tried to kidnap her. And so it was like actually a very good kind of after-school special style of like, hey guys, just be aware there's creeps on the internet. It was very early.
Not everyone that says lonely girl.
Now everyone knows there are creeps on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, people did.
I feel like pretty much all those shows would, there were certain themes.
Ripped
like,
straight from the headlines.
Don't take amphetamines.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Don't do drugs. It won't make you cool.
Don't
No.
vandalize things.
Yeah.
And obey your parents.
Special Degrassi High.
Yes. And do what your mother tells you.
It's I will say for the time period it was at, the show is actually pretty.
I don't know why I missed it. Was it cable?
No, it was on PBS. I didn't. In the U.S., they showed it. It showed up exclusively.
I didn't really
PBS
have cable until later on.
But if you had PBS, it was part of a TV Ontario. Like they in the Children's Television Workshop, I think in PBS, did this thing where they shared like kind of like a North American like set of programs. So you had the Square One TV.
Oh, Square One. I loved Square One.
Oh, it was great. MathNet was the best part of Square One.
Oh, yeah, MathNet. Oh, my God.
If you watch it as an adult, you realize that the writers were not only good at math, they were also clever writers to include a lot of adult references in all the stuff they wrote. So if you watch it now, you'll still laugh because there's so many in-jokes that you finally get as an adult.
That's so great. That's like the Animaniacs. I recently started rewatching those, and there's so many adult jokes that as an adult I'd be like, oh, this isn't appropriate. But as a kid, I didn't. I went right over my head. It was great.
But the problems are real.
It was a Monday, 2:43 p.m. and warm in Los Angeles.
It's so low. You can barely hear that.
It was, yeah. It's funny because Square One was staffed with a lot of comedians. So a lot of the skits that they did tended to have a very funny, jovial bent. There was one where they did the number 9. Was it the magic number 9? Where it's like a country duo. They're singing a song about the number 9, why it's magic. But basically, if you multiply 9 by any number and then add up the results. So like say 9 times 9. If you add up the 8, you get 81. You add the 8 plus 1, you get 9. So if you do that with any number, it'll always come back and you can reduce it to the number 9. That was the whole thing. And I thought, well, this is cool. This would actually make someone interested in, finding out what numbers work.
This is why Sarah Lane became a mathematician.
Yeah. The Beatles sang about it.
She helped co-discover the concept of Sarah.
If you could call that singing about the number 9.
Number 9.
9.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Good Day Internet today. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Sorry the Discord audio was a little wonky today, but it looks like Twitch went around just fine. And Blair, thank you so much. It was great having you on.
Yay,
Thanks
Blair.
so much.
Yay.
This is so
We need to have you
fun.
back soon.
I'd love to come back. I'll let you guys know if I find any amazing animal-related tech news.
Yeah,
Hey-
that'd be great.
Bagel dog.
And I'll make a bagel dog, and
Report
I will
back.
let you all know.
Yes, I am. We will wait with bated breath.
Great.
With bagel.
Don't bait that breath too much. It'll probably be 6 months.
Right. Okay. Fine.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. And
Bye.
please do have a good day.
Have a good day.
Good day.